Indie Radio presents The Spotlight, Internet Radio Show, Season 14, the program that puts the spotlight on independent content creators. Each week, our hosts bring to you entertaining and thought-provoking episodes. This is your home for news about television, film, gaming, and much, much more. Join us live here every Wednesday as we bring to you interviews and biting commentary. And now, your hosts, Jen and Kente. Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of The Spotlight. I am your host, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, Kente. This is episode number 259, and this is a special episode. We normally don't do our show on Sundays, but because of our special guest today, we are making a special episode, and I'm very excited about it. But before we get into our special guest for today, let me introduce my wonderful co-host. It's the one and only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. It's really fun to be up on a Sunday morning, actually do a spotlight. It's a little different, little out of our regular schedule, but still fun. And just so that you all can appreciate this, it's 9 o'clock in the morning here, so I may not be at my best, but I will give it my 100%.
It's so funny because people are like, "You're on right now?" Like, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty funny. So of course, we love participation, and if you are checking us out live, please make sure that you can please make sure you go to the top chat section of this page and just put in there, say something, let us know that you are here, and we will recognize you being here. All right. So let's get into the episode. We are so blessed to be joined by podcaster, blogging diva herself, Ileane Smith. Ileane Smith. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a long time coming, Kente and Jen, and I'm really happy to be here with you guys today, talking about content.
Yes, we're going to be talking a lot about content. And, people have heard me say this quite a bit. I used to be a part of this website. It was called Blab. And while I was on Blab, I had the pleasure of meeting so many wonderful people. And the person, our guest today is one of the people that I met on Blab. And a lot of us, we still miss that website. It was an amazing website. And I see Leah and Sniff are in the chat room. Big up to them. So that's how we met, was on Blab. And I know it's been about 2 years since Blab went down.
Oh, it's going on 3 now. But yeah. Yep.
That is crazy. I think I was the last show on Blab because literally it went down during our show. I had the Black Empowerment 365 show, and it literally went down in the middle of it. And I was getting tweets and messages like, people were sending me, hey, I can't get into your show because the site is down. And I was like, oh, wow. So we were literally the last show on Blab.
I am a person who goes to bed. I turn in very early and I wake up super early every day. That's how I get stuff done. And that night I had gone to bed, and around 9 or 10, which I never wake up that time, something just said, get up and go on Blab. And that's when I saw it was shut down. But, because we kind of knew that it was coming. And the reason why I want to talk about this, and I'm glad you brought it up, is because, we can't depend on these platforms to stay connected with one another because you just never know. And so what we had done, a lot of us had said, let's make sure we're connected beyond whatever happens with Blab, because we could see the handwriting was on the wall. And even if it hadn't shut down, things were getting kind of bad over there. They were just not responding to support calls and all that stuff. So we were like connecting with each other. We're like, where do you hang out? You hang out on Facebook? Do you hang out on Twitter? Is Instagram, is that your platform of choice? And so that's how a lot of us were able to still stay connected because of the other platforms that we made sure that we were connected on. And had we not done that, we probably all would have lost touch. But we kept that connection going, and that's what we have to do, guys. You know, these platforms, they come and they go, and even the big ones that will have different features that they offer us. And then, you know, everybody knows about Facebook adpocalypse on YouTube. You know, they change those algorithms when you least expect it, right? When you really get comfortable and start depending on it, that's when they switch up. So you got to make sure that you have other ways of staying connected with your audience.
Right. I saw the writing on the wall before it went down, and I started a Facebook group called the Podcasters and Streamers Alliance. And so a lot of the Blab people joined up, and other people I know who are in the podcasting streaming arena. So that was a way that we had already had that established. So that really helped in that transition too, as well. And there's other groups as well. So I'm glad though, because it's funny though, certain people, if it was meant to be, you're still connected with other people. You're only supposed to be with them for a short period of time anyway. So it is what it is. That's how I look at it. So.
Yeah, and not to beat a dead horse, but one more thing I want to say about that, and we see this coming up again with Google Plus, right? Right now we're on Hangouts, and this is really where I cut my teeth when it comes to live streaming, was with Google Plus and Hangouts. So I'm kind of glad that they had already separated that connection between Hangouts and, now you're actually on YouTube Live. But Google, because this is not their first rodeo with shutting down apps, right? They have given us advance notice. They've given us more than enough time to figure out what we're going to do with our content, because that's important. We got to download our content and get it off of there in case we want to ever use it for anything. And also to make sure that we have another fallback, another platform where we can connect with those that we got introduced to on Google Plus. So that's the big difference. Google does have class when it comes to that. They know, they give us a heads up ahead of time versus the folks at Blab. And yeah, I'm just going to say it. They shut down in the middle of the night, and that was not a class act.
Not at all, yeah. Especially after you built up such a great fan base of people who are so loyal, Yeah, it was kind of crazy, but it is what it is. And I'm glad that a lot of us have, moved on and to bigger and better things, hopefully.
That's right. And we're still connected.
We are connected, yes. So I want to get into a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally? Let's start off there.
Oh, okay. Actually, it's from where I am right now, Philadelphia. You guys, Jen was talking about how it's early in the morning for her. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon for me. And, I've born and raised here in Philadelphia. In fact, I lived in the one house where actually, my parents, they passed away. So I'm owner of that house now, and it's being renovated. I'm about to rent it out. But the house that I live in now is the one that was my grandmother's house. So I kind of don't go too far. I stay in my little bubble. And, I love being here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly effectiveness, as I was taught by one of our city council people. So this is my origins. Now, earlier in the pre-show, we talked a little bit about my daughter. And the reason why I said I can't really talk about content without talking about my daughter is because I have an adult daughter. For those who don't know, her name is Nicole. And when Nicole, we're going to go back to around 2009. And for a while, she moved away from Philadelphia. She was living in LA with her dad. And so she messaged me one day. She says, Mom, I have a blog. And I was like, I know about blogs. Most of my internet was just looking up stuff on Wikipedia and Internet Movie Database, but I knew about blogs, but I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. But I knew I wanted to follow my daughter's blog. So I headed over, at the time it was WordPress.com. And so I headed over to WordPress.com and I'm like, I'm going to be following my daughter's blog. But no, I was signing up for a blog. So I actually started blogging by mistake and thinking that I was following her blog. And Kente and Jem, what happened as a result of that, I just felt so empowered, like, oh my gosh, I have my own blog. I can say what I want to say. I can put my message out there. So in the beginning, I was just like willy-nilly. I was all over the place. I was like, I'm just going to talk about whatever I feel like talking about. Well, as we know, you can't do that. You got to have a niche, right? But at the beginning, I didn't know that. But I started to explore social media. Like I said, this is back in 2009, right? So I started using Twitter a little bit and then Facebook. And then I found out I could actually promote my blog. So what I did was, as I would learn things, I would write a blog post because I didn't want to forget it. So, so I kind of was doing it for myself, but that's what my audience liked. My audience liked when I would do tutorials, and I actually like doing them too. So that's kind of like where I found my sweet spot of doing tutorials and kind of teaching tech and everything that when I learned something, I would teach it. And so that's really my origin story.
You know what's interesting? That's kind of what happened with me. I started a blog, not really to even make it for the public. It was like there was all these stories I would be talking about with friends and family, and I wanted just to put the content somewhere together. So I would send it to, like, I would say, hey, so that instead of just me talking about it, they can see what I was talking about. And my dumb butt didn't even realize that other people were going to see it. And then all of a sudden it was like a lot of people were like, oh, they wanted the information too. So next thing you know, I had this blog it was on Blogger, and people were really into it. Like, the information that I was putting out there, like to the point where they were wanting the information. And at that time, I really didn't understand how powerful it was. I mean, I did on some levels, but I have now, I would have a greater appreciation. Mm-hmm. But, because in my mind was really the only people that were seeing it was the people I was sending it directly to, the links or whatever. And then I'm like, wait a minute, it's like thousands of people like looking at this stuff. So it's really interesting that we have a similar kind of origin when it comes to the blogging aspects of it. So you brought up something very interesting about needing to have something very niche. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. Okay, let me go back to that same example when I started the blog. Here was my tagline. I'm going to talk about love, life, music, and anything else that comes to mind. So I wanted to have a blog that was just all over the place. And believe me, in the beginning, I did. I was talking about, music. And I talked about my grandmother who, like I said, who used to live here, who passed away. I did a little talking about that. And, and it was just like, when you have people that subscribe or that follow you, they kind of want to see the same type of content, at least in the same realm. They don't want to know everything you do. Not just on Instagram. But when you're talking about a real piece of content or a real content hub, like a blog, a YouTube channel, a podcast, you can't really expect to build a following unless you're a celebrity.
Right.
You just have that many friends, right? But when you're building an audience and when you're getting people to know, like, and trust you, okay, You got to focus on someone who is attracted to the type of content you're talking about. Okay, so like you did an intro here and you talked about content creators. So everybody who follows you or that follows this program or subscribes to your channel knows that even though there might be different types of content creators, like maybe there's somebody who does recipes one day, and then maybe there's somebody who does fashion another day, but they're content creators, and that's your niche.
Right. And I had to learn that because very early on, my first YouTube channel, I was all over the place, and I had, 1 minute I'm talking about this thing and that thing because, I'm someone who has a lot of different interests. And I realized that, you would lose subscribers really fast when you jump around and all of that stuff. And so and I noticed even when starting podcasts, you want it to have like a kind of a narrow focus because you'll lose people. Like they really don't like a lot of that. I remember I started a podcast where we're interviewing people from different like there was on different TV shows and stuff like that. And I know I would promote it as this person is on this specific show right at the moment. And I realized something that that people started feeling like, okay, if I didn't watch that certain show, that this particular podcast had no value to them. So I stopped doing that, and I started promoting that show as these are different people that's in the industry. So it was the industry show more than this person was on Dexter or whatever show they're on. So that's very interesting. And like I said this in the pre-show, the thing that I love about your content is you help people who are trying to become content creators on whatever platform, but you don't shame them for not knowing, because you just don't know until you know. Right. And a lot of it is trial and error. And even those people who claim they're experts and they know everything and they've, I've never made any mistakes, they're lying. Right.
That's right. And with that said, and I know people sometimes they may be intimidated by, I don't know, I got all these different interests. I don't know. I like to write and I like to sing, or maybe you're a musician and you're just like, I'm not sure. I don't. Just remember, guys, you can always change. It's always a growth process. You can always transition. You can always morph into a different genre or a different niche. But the point is to start creating content so you can find out what works. You might think that's what you want to do. You want to write about a specific topic, and then 6 months into it, you're like, I don't think I really want to write about that. But you were writing, you were still growing an audience, you were still seeing what it's like to build content, to promote that content, learning the different platforms. So you were still on the right track. Then you announce to your audience, okay, it's going to be a little shift. I'm going to maybe, for example, you might be doing an interview show, and then you realize that you don't like doing interviews, or it's a problem getting people to come in at the time when you want them to, or whatever the case may be. And then you just tell people, we're going to make a change here at the station or at the channel or at the blog, whatever it is. And we're going to start doing solo broadcasts, or maybe you even put it out there to your audience and you ask them, what would you like? What do you guys like to see? More interviews or more solo or storytelling? So just remember that you can morph. It's okay to change. It's not a statue. Okay. Right. It's your content, and it can grow and it can transition and it can evolve.
Now, go ahead. Jen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that this is one of the strangest issues in content creation that people don't pay attention to that they should. And that is that understanding processes and system architecture is just as important, sometimes through trial and error, as the actual content is. I started back remember when movable type was a thing? That was a long time ago. And I learned using this movable type system how to create blog content that I could then port to regular HTML pages. But it was a big process for me. And only by creating the content could I understand the system and the processes. So sometimes when I think we are being creative, we forget that there's a big learning experience attached to all of this, and we sort of have to be a little bit more forgiving of ourselves about that process, because even if you see it as a failure, it's actually a stepping stone to whatever your next level is.
You know, that's one of my favorite quotes. Obstacles do not block the path. They are the path.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy that. Savor that moment as you're learning. And, you know, you may see that, oh, gosh, I'm not getting that much traction. I'm not getting that much engagement on a specific thing. So you might have to tweak something, but value that audience that you do have. So if you have 5 subscribers, or if you have 5,000 subscribers, value those 5 just as you would the 5,000.
Amen.
Right.
That's for sure. Now, I have a long history about being late to the game, and I'm gonna explain what I mean by that. Back in the day, there was this thing called Black Planet, right? And I got into that later than, I got into it past the point that it was popping, right? And then, Friendster came out. I didn't really get into that. MySpace came out. You had to be on MySpace. I got to that late to the game. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that, right? So I have 2 questions for you. How do you know what platforms you should be involved with? And then also, how can you tell, how can you see it before it becomes a thing too? Is there a way to it? Is there a way to check out, to be ahead of the game? And how do you figure out which platforms you should be involved with?
I like those questions, and nobody's asked me that before, so I had to think about that. So I will say that my strategy with that has changed over time, because just what we were talking about earlier, Blab. We were all taking a risk by going over to Blab, because Blab was this new thing that was on the scene. And a lot of people, they kind of lost out, not 100%, but they lost out on their content, because if they did not get their content and download that content, they lost it. Okay. Right. Because like I said, they shut down overnight. So because of that, I learned a lesson, and at this point, I'm sticking to the platforms that seem to have more stable financial backing.
Right.
That doesn't mean I won't experiment. So, for example, I like YouTube. I like, I ain't going to say I like Facebook, but I'm on Facebook, Twitter. Okay. But there's another platform that people that are on Google Plus have thought about experimenting with, looking at, and it's called MeWe. I am proceeding with caution. It's a chat. It has nothing to do with live streaming. Okay. I am proceeding with caution. So I will check it out, do a little bit more due diligence. Whereas before I just dove in and was on that platform or was on Blab every day. Right. But now I'm being more cautious, watching. Another platform is you mentioned that I'm also a podcaster. So when it comes to podcasting, people think about Apple Podcasts or iTunes. Google Podcasts is the new thing that's on the scene. And then you have all the different podcasting hosts. Well, Anchor is a podcasting host that's new on the scene. And I'm willing to take a risk because I already have my platform established on podcasting. So people say, well, what happens if they shut down overnight? I'm making sure I keep my content. Okay. Because we already been down that road, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, they shut down overnight. Now it's kind of like, whatever. Because I already been down that road. But I don't want to see that happen to someone else who's in the process of like just building up steam with creating content and just getting used to it. Don't get too married to any of these platforms. Remember, your audience is what's really important. Now, like I said, I like to recommend to stick with the bigger platforms, even Twitch. People say, well, why are you experimenting with Twitch? Well, Twitch is owned by Amazon. Last time I checked, they're the big kahuna. Okay. When it comes to, I don't have to worry about
Right.
Amazon shutting Twitch down in the middle of the night. Not saying they wouldn't shut it down, but not in the middle of the night. Okay. So I kind of like to stick to the bigger platforms. And then from there, experiment every now and then with something that looks, but proceed with caution, do your due diligence and check on the people, make sure the platform is secure and all that. Do a little searches to see if people are talking about, the platform not being secure or there being a lot of trolls on the platform or whatever. Do all of that before you start telling people, come find me on such and such. Like I said, MeWe. I understand that one of their things is about being very secure. But before I would actually make a big announcement to my audience and say, everybody, I'm all in on MeWe, I would have to spend time there. I would have to do my research and all that. For right now, I'm telling people YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, those are my primary platforms, but I do also use Twitch.
Hey, I have a question for you. And this is, excuse me, this is specifically related to the way that we use social media as people first, and then as, like we were talking about before, our niche environments. So there are some platforms that lend itself to creating those niche environments, and podcasting is one, blogging is another. But when it comes to the overall social media experience, unless you create multiple profiles, as an example, your Twitter feed tends to be a representation of sort of who you are with the niche and without the niche. And I am curious about how you perceive the use of Twitter as a promotional kind of tool for yourself, but also allows you to still sort of use the profile as the platform intends for you to use it, which is aggregating other people's content, pushing that out, sharing things that are of relevance that you think that people who are with you will find relevant as well. So could you touch on that a little?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, one of the things that I've done over the years, I've got a collection of tools that I use to curate content. So whereas the average person may go on Twitter, scroll down their feed and see something interesting and then share it, I have all these content curation hubs that I use to find other content that I share mixed in with my own promotional content. For example, one of them is called BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo is a tool that you can use to find out like what's the popular content, what's the most shared content. Then there's another one that I use that's called Viral Content Bee. That's from my friend Ann Smarty. And Viral Content Bee is one where people submit their own content for others in the community to share. Biz Sugar is another one. I've got a bunch of them. I could go on and on. Q, which is another one that's kind of up and coming that I, once again, proceeded with caution into. And Q is one that you guys may not have heard of. It's QUUU. And it's a platform where you can go and discover content that's been vetted. Mm-hmm. Also to have your content shared. Oh, and you know what? Earlier when I was talking about platforms, I forgot to mention LinkedIn. And I know a lot of people are using LinkedIn, or they may be thinking about, do I have time for LinkedIn? But I want to also throw them in with being a major player because, they're owned by Microsoft. So
are you of the opinion then that people should create multiple profiles, or that you should maintain simply one presence by which you are always redefining? Because I struggle with this myself, right? My Twitter handle is very much an eclectic mix of a lot of the things that I find to be interesting, things that I've done, things that I would like to promote out. But the more niche sort of environment that we're talking about would almost require a totally separate handle in order to deal with that. And so I'm just curious about how you think that where the line is between your content creation and your social media presence.
Okay. All of everything you just said. Okay, but here's what I mean. And I'll just start with Twitter. First, I think that people should proceed, think about their time. Think about how much time they want to devote to social media and how much content they even have to share. Okay. So let's just say you're starting with a one platform, because everybody probably already has Facebook. So let's just say you're starting with Twitter. You have your Twitter lists. Twitter lists are just an incredible way to streamline that content. So I have all of my podcasters in one list. So when I just want to talk about podcasting, I go to my Twitter list about podcasting, and that's what I either look for or engage with and so forth. Then, and I use Hootsuite to do that because it's very easy to see those columns on Hootsuite. Then you mentioned having additional profiles. Yes, I have another profile. In fact, when I started getting into Anchor, I found out a lot of people are looking for a free podcast host. So I started a whole entire Twitter profile and a podcast called Free Podcast Host. Years ago, I started, I mentioned my story of starting with blogging. So the blog that when I decided I wanted to have a niche, right? I started Basic Blog Tips in 2010. I have a Twitter handle for Basic Blog Tips, but everybody doesn't have the bandwidth to have 3 Twitter accounts, a Facebook, a YouTube.
Right.
If you don't have the bandwidth, don't feel bad. Do what you have the bandwidth for. Pick the platform that you like and work with that one. Okay. I think I covered all of because you had like a multifaceted question. I think I covered on everything.
You did.
That's her middle name is multifaceted.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I'm a person out there. I've seen Kente's podcast. I've seen, I've seen Jen. I've seen Ileane. Now I think, you know what? I can throw my hat in the ring too, and I can do it. These guys can do it. I can do it. Right. So how would you coach somebody who thinks that they could be a podcaster as far as how to get started, as well as how much should they invest as far as money into the beginning of their foray into podcasting?
Okay. So first you would start off with what is your budget? Because a lot of people have a lot of long money to spend on these hobbies, podcasting, and then a lot of other people are kind of like, I actually have no money. So start with Anchor. Start with Anchor. Start with the free, and people say, oh my God, like I said earlier, what happens if it shuts down? Save your content. And if you have to, you move to another platform once you start making money, because the easiest way to make money online for just about anybody is affiliate marketing. Okay. So you recommend products, and Amazon is the easy one to do because they sell everything, including food. They even do home repairs and all that stuff now. Right. So you start with that. And as you start to make money, then that's when you see that you need to start investing it back into building your content. So in my case, I started before there was a free podcast host, right? I started with Libsyn, was my first podcast host, and it was $20. And it's like, that to me is a small investment for me in getting my message out. Okay. But there are other free resources. You definitely always want to try to have good audio. Even if you're doing video, you want to have an external microphone if you're doing it from your computer. If you're on your phone, you want to try to get like a lavalier microphone. And then a lot of these USB mics will actually plug into your phone. I've got videos about all this, guys.
Yes, she does.
So you want to, because you want to make sure that, you know, maybe your first couple episodes, you're just doing it from your phone, or you're doing it from the built-in computer, a built-in mic on your computer, because you just want to get started. Don't let that stop you from getting started. Just go, go, go. Because guess what? In the beginning, nobody's listening to you anyway.
Right.
Okay. So you got to get it out there. You got to get used to knowing what it takes to do a podcast, knowing what it takes to start writing articles. If you're going to start a blog, go with WordPress.com. Go with Blogger. You mentioned Blogger. I forgot to tell you guys, I got about 5 Blogger blogs. You know, go with free. Don't think because, you know, I don't have any money. If as long as you can type somehow and you got thoughts in your head, even you don't have to type, you can talk. There's, you know what I mean? So there's so many ways that you can get your content out there, even for free. And it's just going to give you the opportunity to, it's going to make you feel better. Because first of all, you're expressing yourself. And you're getting your thoughts together, and you're going to look back maybe 5 months, maybe 3 years from now and say, oh my gosh, I was just all over the place. But you had to get started, because if you don't get started, 3 years from now, you'll say, I sure wish I would have started a podcast.
Right.
Just get started with whatever equipment you have. I do recommend, if you're going to start and you have money to invest, I do have an Amazon shop, and we can get that link over in the description. But, you know, head over there, look through my mic recommendations. I have tripod recommendations. Or maybe you just want to do live streams from your phone, things like that. Like the webcam I'm using right now, all that stuff is over on my Amazon shop. And, you know, get started with whatever you can afford. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't afford anything, so I can't start making content. Because at this point in time, guys, there are so many platforms that are fighting for our content that there's always a way you can get started for free.
Content is king. Yes.
Yeah. You know, I just got invited by Facebook. You know, people were talking about how hard it is to get into this Facebook program called Facebook Watch, which you can earn money from Facebook. Hard to believe, right? But anyway, I got the invitation this morning, and I have, no exaggeration, 255 people following my Facebook page. And I know people that have huge followings on Facebook with thousands and thousands of pages of followers or fans or likes, whatever you want to call them. And they're still waiting for their invitation. But I don't know what got me on Facebook's radar, if it's because of my YouTube, because remember, they're all competing for one another, right? So they might see me over on Twitch and say, hey, this girl's a content creator. She's on YouTube. Other than that, I don't know why. So to get back to the question, just use the resources that you have, or do a little research through my Amazon shop, or you find some other content creator that you really like their style, or you really like the way they do things. You find out what mics they're using or what lighting they're using and so forth. And you start building, but don't try to do everything overnight. Don't say, oh my God, I can't start until I get my studio with my high PR 40 mic and my mixer and no, you don't have to wait for any of that. Get started, because like I said in the beginning, nobody's listening. This is just you learning how to create content.
Right. And great information, definitely. I want to give a real quick shout out to one of our fellow ex-blabbers, Patricia Emery, who I love her so much. She's a wonderful person and great content creator in her own right. Okay, so let me ask this question. and I don't know, it depends on your answer, how Jen will feel about it. We still need .coms. Are those still necessary?
You know, I always feel like you need to have your own home base. Because as we've said, we've gone down this path of talking about these sites that shut down, even when it's like Google Plus, right? We've got the biggest company, one of the two biggest companies in the world is shutting down their social platform. So let's say you go over to MeWe, you don't like it. You don't like Facebook. You don't, Twitter, that's not your thing. Where are you going to tell people to go? To your website. This is how you build your email list. This is how you really establish your presence online. When people go and Google your name, the first thing that comes up should be your .com or .net if you couldn't get the .com because you got a common name or something. But yeah, I still think you should have it. Even if you do, like I said, a free WordPress blog, a free blogger blog, whatever it takes, you go register a domain. You can register a domain with Namecheap or GoDaddy for like $10. So everybody's got $10 if they're on the internet, right?
Right. I'm so happy because that's what she does. So
I'm really glad I have a little bit of job security left because that's important. That's really important.
There was like a period of time where so-called experts were saying you don't need .coms no more. You have social media. That's where the kids are at. I'm like, no, you really do need your own website. It's still, still important.
It's funny because I think that people actually use .coms to verify what they see on social media. So you can push out a lot of different content on social media, but if you can't back it up with something that is anchored to a .com, a lot of times people will say, well, does that actually exist? Is there really this here? The moment that you put something into a fixed page, into something that actually is anchored to a .com, all of a sudden it lends credence to the content itself. So it's an interesting psychology that happens between the two.
Yes. And, I think that sometimes I'm sorry for that. That's the microwave.
I thought it was me. I was like, oh, okay. I was like,
get up to shut it
or something. Okay.
But I think sometimes you see these so-called, I'll use my air quotes, gurus that will kind of say what people want to hear them say.
That's the truth.
So people are very hot on social media now. People are into Instagram. They're into Facebook. And so that's just what they want to hear. You don't have time for a website? You don't have to worry about that. You don't need no website. Don't believe the hype, people.
Yes. Yeah. Also, let's talk about engagement with your audience. One thing that I love about doing live streaming is that you have that engagement with your audience, back and forth. Normally we have it a way for people can call in and stuff like that. For those who do, especially live stuff, or even not live stuff, even if you have a pre-recorded show that you put into the, put out there, what are some advices that you give on how to engage with your audience, how to get your audience more engaged? Because a lot of people, you'll hear, sometimes you get a caller and they'll be like a long-time listener, first-time caller, or something like that. Is there ways to promote more engagement?
Yeah, and I think you've done an excellent job of that today. And I just want to make sure I chime in on what you've done here. And you said hi to everybody who's here. Sniff is here. Leah, the life coach. Patricia Emery, my homie. And whoever comes into your chat, you want to be able to reach out to them and you want to acknowledge them. The platform that I use when I do my live streams is called Be Live. And I'm sorry, it's called Ecamm Live. I'm sorry, I was talking about Be Live earlier today. That's why I said it's called Ecamm Live. And Ecamm Live, one of the reasons why I love that platform, what it lets me do and actually you can do this with Be Live as well, is pin people's comments up at the top of your video, which you can't do that with Hangouts, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
But it's another helpful tool that you can use to increase that engagement. And, you know, if you can having people on, like what you're doing now with having an interview, that's another way. You know, you may want to interview somebody who really may not be somebody who has a big following or something like that. You just want to interview one of your listeners or one of your audience members. I have another tool that I use that's called SpeakPipe, so that people can leave me voicemails no matter what. And so all they have to do is go over to my SpeakPipe page, and I'll give you guys that link in case anybody wants to leave me a voicemail. It's Ileane.link/voicemail. So you have those little tools available to you. You reach out and find those tools that can facilitate that constant engagement. Like, for example, I don't like giving out my email address because right now, because I have that blog, Basic Blog Tips, I get maybe a dozen emails every day, people asking me for a guest post on Basic Blog Tips.
Wow.
Oh, so I have an alternate because I use Libsyn for my podcast. Libsyn has a contact page. So I use that instead, and it makes people fill in all their information, and it also has a little captcha on the page. This way I don't have to worry about having that plug-in on my blog with the captchas and stuff. So, you know, just whatever kind of tools that you can find to facilitate that, just go ahead and do that.
Now, within the last year or so, YouTube did this big demonetization thing, and they're very like hardcore when it comes to demonetizing videos and whatnot, which, you know, I told people that day was coming, and most people act like it was just going to last forever, you know. And before that, but definitely after that, you saw a lot of people really hitting the Patreon, you know, really trying to direct their listeners to support them financially through Patreon. And so my take is, what's your take on the whole demonetization thing, as well as Patreon, using Patreon to get, you know, revenue? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, because of the microwave sounds and stuff. But I'm actually using Patreon, and I love it. I love how you can make a way for people to support you, and also at the same time to make perks available for them. So to have special things that you only give to those people who value your content to the point that they want to monthly give you some type of it's really it's like a tip. It's like a tip, you know, because I think the highest pay Patreon that I have right now is $12. And you might, wow, that's a lot, right? But then again, it's $12 for a month. So it's just a show of support. You know, so I love Patreon. I've done tutorials about Patreon, how to set up your page, how to create your perks and all that. And then also on the Anchor platform, give a shout out once again to my girl, Patricia Emery here from the Durham Skywriter. She's doing listener support for me over on Anchor. And you can support for $5 or $1 a month or $10 a month. So I love those ideas. Now, personally, as far as YouTube is concerned, I never had any problems with the adpocalypse. But what I will say about it is I think that people a lot of times, they kind of blame YouTube because people kind of think of YouTube as kind of like Big Brother, but it's really to the benefit of folks, because they're putting content out that is not really good to have ads on. Now, my thing is, I'm not really a huge fan of ads, of advertisers, even on my podcast and all that.
Right.
But for some reason, people think that's the only way they can monetize their content is with advertising, you know? And it's like one of the reasons I stopped listening to the radio and then to begin with and started listening to podcasts because I don't like ads. But these advertisers are picky. And if you're talking about a certain topic, they don't want their ads because then it doesn't represent their company well. And, you know, I just kind of wish that folks would kind of steer away from so much relying on that advertising as a way to monetize. Not saying that you shouldn't do it, because I definitely do it on YouTube, and I definitely, you know, at least get a payout enough that maybe it covers my hosting fees, maybe it covers my podcast hosting fees and things like that. So there's nothing wrong with it. It is my content, but YouTube really is the one who benefits overall because of all the content creators. This is why, like I said earlier, these platforms are all fighting for us because we're the product. We're creating the content that they make money off of. All they do is give us a platform.
Right. Right. Now, as you know, as I said, I'm a big admirer of your work, and I could talk to you for hours. We only have an hour with you today. So we're at the point of the show that I affectionately love to call rapid fire. And the way that rapid fire works is that me and Jen will pepper you with questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first question that we always start off with is a couple of years ago at Coachella, they did a hologram concert for the rapper Tupac. What dead artist or band would you like to see a hologram concert of?
Prince.
Hey, I can't go wrong with that.
I didn't even have to I didn't even have to think more than 2 seconds on that. Prince, I absolutely love. And honestly, speaking of advertising, let me just rant a little bit. You know, Prince never wanted his music to be on YouTube. And he did not like the fact that, you know, the advertisers and the way things were monetized. Okay. So of course, after his passing, you know, his estate, those folks, they got to have a way to kind of, you know, like make ends meet, right? Because they got the mansion and everything.
Right.
So they started releasing his videos little by little by little. Okay. 2 days ago, I heard a commercial with Prince's music in the commercial. And I said, I bet you he is turning in his grave. Bad enough y'all got him on YouTube. Now y'all adding them onto the commercial. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just know from the artist, because I remember when I looked for his videos, this is when he was alive. I was looking for his videos, making my playlists and stuff for when I work out at the gym, and I couldn't find any Prince music. And when I would find it, the next day it would be taken down because he did not want his music on YouTube. But it's all, you know, slowly but surely they're uploading, you know. But I hate the fact that I hear it on a TV commercial. That just
he didn't like that. Yeah. Jen.
Okay, reach back into your childhood and tell us what book you read as a child that had the most influence on your adult life.
Probably, and it's funny because somebody asked on Twitter. Asked earlier today, who was my first favorite author? And that would probably be the Autobiography of Malcolm X. And the reason why, because I think knowing that book, and I did a book report on it, and that's probably why it, you know, resonates with me. And thinking about different ways of looking at the world, because, you know, as a child, you're raised up with all your parents' values and their religions and their culture and all of that stuff, right? everybody is like that. Okay. Your parents are raising you. Of course, they want to instill you with their values and their culture. And to be exposed to the fact that there was other religions and other cultures that blew my mind as a child.
Good answer. Really
And
good answer.
It's interesting you said that. My father, who passed away in 2013, when during the Watts riots, my father had been in an accident right before it happened, and he was in the hospital. It was a very bad accident, and during that time, he read the Autobiography of Malcolm X, and he always said that book changed his life forever. And my father, was an activist and a community leader and stuff like that. And he said that book totally changed his way of viewing the world and a lot of stuff. So it's a very important work by Alex Haley.
Alex Haley. Yep.
Yes. Yep. All right. So what is your favorite guilty pleasure junk food?
The cheese twist, the honey. What are they? Honey cheese twists. They're hot. Okay, that's it. They're hot and they're honey cheese twists. They stick on my teeth, and they have no nutritional value whatsoever. Chocolate, you can say, oh yes, chocolate. It could, give you a little caffeine. It could soothe you, and there's some medicinal thing there, right? But with the hot honey cheese twist, and I know you guys may not be able to even get them where you are. I know they have them here in Philly. I don't even know if there's any food there. It's just all junk.
It's just flavor crystals.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. My question to you, and this is a little bit different from questions that I normally ask, but once again, reaching back into your childhood, what would you say is your favorite holiday based on your childhood memories?
Wonderful, wonderful question. And it still is today, Thanksgiving. Nice. Because, and I'm one of those people that I'm not, even though I was just talking about Malcolm X and other religions, I am a Christian, but I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't put up decorations and all, because at some point in my life, I realized that most of the people that I really want to buy gifts for don't even want what it is that I want to buy them. And, why does Christmas have to be about buying gifts? So once I realized that I was anti-Christmas, I started really thinking about what is the real holiday when families really get together and really talk about, the love that they have for each other and share those memories. And it's, family-wide, eat good food. Just, there's no gifts involved. There's no real pressure except on the person who's cooking the meal. And, you just make it a potluck if that's the case. And, I've had in this house where I live, like I said, I live in the house that was my grandmom's house when I was growing up. And so I have wonderful memories of these 5-layer cakes that my grandmom used to make, and all the wonderful, stuffing and greens and macaroni and cheese and all that wonderful, wonderful things that we used to eat, and just have a wonderful, lovely time with family.
Wow.
Well, we're all coming to your house for Thanksgiving this year.
Oh, right. We're gonna have them cheese.
All I have is the memories. So if y'all don't mind eating those, come on over.
Food for the soul is a thing.
My daughter has them. My daughter has some of the recipes because my mom passed them on to her. But me, I'm like, okay, I can go have a turkey sandwich now and I'm fine.
All right. So this is our last question. We always end with this one. You got to help a brother out. Okay. So a young man is dating a young lady, or he's going on his first date with a young lady in Philadelphia. So you got to give him advice. What is the perfect date to take a young lady out on in Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia, I would say that you don't want to go and do the traditional get a cheesesteak from Pat's, because that's not the real cheesesteaks. Okay. That's
Mhm.
the first thing. So we do have some amazing music venues here. And one being the Kimmel Center, the Man Music Center, the Dell. So if there's a concert anywhere near the time when you start dating this young lady, that concert of the kind of music that you guys both may like, I would suggest to go to one of those premier venues that we have. Like I said, the Kimmel Center, the Man Music Center, or the Dell. And that's where they have the outdoor concerts and stuff in the summertime. Go there and you'll have, because Philly is a music town. So you, two thumbs up.
All right. All right. I'm going to have to remember that if I ever go on a date in Philadelphia. I will. If it works, I will take credit for it. If it don't work, I'm going to say, my good friend he told me to do it. So I'm covered either way. I'm covered. I'm sure.
Right. Oh, wow. This has been so much fun, guys.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to get you on the show. And how can people get you in social media and such, and tell us about your websites and what should we be on the lookout for as far as your content is concerned?
Okay, so the first thing that you guys have to do, if you know my name is pronounced Ileane, you have to know how to spell my name, and then you can find me everywhere. So what I do is I kind of like to sing it. So it's Ileane, Ileane. So if you can remember that, you can find me on every platform, just about on the internet. And if you can't find me under that handle, I'm not there.
All right. And anything we should be on the lookout for as far as your content?
Every weekend I go live on YouTube. So just subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that little bell notification so you'll know when I go live.
All right. I mean, I can talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to go to Jen. How can people get you in social media and such?
I am on Twitter at followingbliss1. I am on the web at moviesmakethemeal.com. And now that I know a little bit more about content creation, I think I should head over to my other blog, criticallaughs.com, and make some new content.
All right. I love it. I love it. You can get me on Twitter at KinteF. That's KINTEF on Twitter. On Instagram, you can get me Kinte Ferguson. That's KINTEFERGERSON. You can go to our website, which is indyradio.org. That's INDYradio.org. We will not be on Wednesday due to the fact that it's Halloween. But we will be on tomorrow for our all new episode of Men and Women Talk, the Mars Venus Show. So we have a special episode tomorrow as well. So with all that said, you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend with a little bit left that there is. God bless, and we'll see you next time right here on indyradio.org.
Bye-bye.